So it looks like the Army is still facing issues on Army crime that's going on even until today. Are we talking about a Fort Hood 2.0? There was a 20-year-old Corporal Hayden Harris, which was an Infantry 11 Bravo soldier that reported to Fort Drum only last year in 2019 after his training over at Fort Benning, that has recently had his life taken by another Army soldier over in New Jersey. So if you guys don't know, Fort Drum is located in upstate New York, which obviously already brings some questions. Why was he down in New Jersey? But why was he meeting up with this other soldier? And I do want to remind you guys that this base is only 80 miles away from the Canadian border. The only reports that we have right now are pretty much the fact that they were meeting up for a quotations vehicle exchange. Now, this happened last Thursday night, and obviously it is now looking almost a week later, and it looks like they have found his body. Now, that other soldier that we're talking about that took his life is Jamal Malish, and he is currently in custody right now. We're looking for further details in order to determine what exactly caused this incident to occur amongst these two soldiers. There have been some statements by the command, including one of them being Brigadier General Brett Funk, says his death is a tremendous loss for his loved ones, this division, and our nation. Now, obviously, this is heartbreaking. My condolences goes out to the family and everybody that's been affected, that has trained with him, worked with him, done everything with this guy. He was such a young guy at 20 years old, just starting his Army career. And remember, we were talking about Vanessa Guillen back in the summertime, and that is still a case that is lingering on. And there has been several other cases. I do not want to miss those cases by any chance. There are just sadly too many to discuss or disclose in this one singular video. And I do think all these people should have justice or an understanding why or when things did occur. This brings for a much bigger discussion as to what is happening in the culture of the Army. Why are we seeing so many different deaths occur specifically in the Army? Missing people, Army on Army crime. Just some of the comments here include Amanda Noriga, which says, and that, folks, is one of the biggest reasons I'm getting out, because the ones who are supposed to have your back and be your second family are the ones who end up hurting you in some form or another. This is really sad. These young soldiers that come in filled with hope and optimism only to be killed by a comrade for what literally existing hurts my head. Wish I had the power to change things. Now, to continue this, we do not know exactly what happened here or why it did. Obviously, nothing justifies taking someone's life, but the only time I really had camaraderie was when I was in a deployed setting. We were doing a field op, my tours overseas, where we were really tight-knit and you're isolated with other military people. And we even have comments on how we could avoid this in the future. This is why soldiers, even the living in barracks, should be able to conceal carry without having to go through all the BS of having to sign your weapon in and out of the arms room at somebody else's convenience. I could definitely understand, like, hey, self-defense makes sense. This didn't happen on the base. This didn't stay on Fort Drum. And I do understand that he would have crossed state lines because you're talking about from New York, talking to New Jersey. You bring a lot of complication to that. There are a lot of scuffles that do occur in the military. I don't know if adding more fuel to the fire of having weapons there when people are maybe drunk in their barracks or hanging out. By the way, you do not realize, if you've never been in the military long enough or stayed in the barracks to know how depressed people can get, I don't know if access to firearms would be something that would be adequate for that. And on top of that, I don't know if that would be a good thing as far as the conflict aspect that could arise between Marines, because they do fight, or soldiers do fight, sailors do fight, everyone fights. Is this Fort Hood North? The fact that it's become so numb, so disconnected at this point, that we've now had the ability to move on to taking such a serious matter so lightly. Even some people are now blaming some of the U.S. Army recruiting by saying, if you find yourself asking why are so many soldiers being murdered, etc., look no further than recruiting command for bringing in the ash and trash to make numbers. The military caused this problem by recruiting less than medically qualified soldiers. Don't thank me for this knowledge. Thank U.S. Army recruiting. And this is the one thing I brought up when I first read this article was, is this something that we need to look at from the baseline of the military? Is this something that we can actually do and scale in large form? How do you medically screen people already through the process that they're in, then go through psychological screening as well, which I would say to a circumstance, boot camp does put people in more stressful situations to quit or probably derail from this system and maybe want to go do other things. But sadly, I don't think there is a way to actually allow for psychological evaluations for every person attempting to come in. As you can see, there are literally 40,000 people that go to Navy boot camp every year. Imagine how many people try and go there. Army boot camp, I don't know their numbers. Marine Corps boot camp, Coast Guard, Air Force, you start looking at this turns out to possibly be hundreds of thousands of people that you're going to have to screen. You have the criticism that we already spend too much money on our defense budget. So where does that come into play, and how is that going to eat away from recruiting efforts other places? Now, as a person that reports on news on a regular basis, some of the worst things that does occur, and this is like the biggest betrayal I could ever think of. Who do I even trust? It makes me look around. And, there are people that I do trust and I definitely do rely on in the military. We end up going in isolated places. This corporal that's here, 20 years old, has no family over at Fort Drum. There is no way for him to really rely on anyone else besides the soldiers around him, especially in an infantry unit where I'm sure there's plenty of training and things that are occurring, where he's already busy. Yes, you have FaceTime. Yes, you have your family, but these are people you should be able to rely on. And this is where I bring the question of the day, and what we're talking about here is how can we increase the quality of soldiers that are coming in? We are already talking about the constraints of people that are medically qualified alone, educational-wise, are able to pass the ASVAB, which, by the way, the Army does have the lowest, I believe, still. I think it was a 21 at one point. Could we increase that? Would that actually have a greater dramatic outcome? By the way, we probably would not know that outcome for a very long time, and we're talking about several years to see if that would change how things are going. Also, on top of that, our country faces one of the biggest issues, which is the obesity rating, which there are a lot of people that can't meet the standards even to be taped or weighed to come into the military. So we are already dealing with a selective population to begin with. And on top of that, let's add the cherry on top. You're usually dealing with people that are coming from lower socioeconomic status, that have had troubled childhoods, troubled parents, and all these challenges that you could understand as far as coping and mechanisms and skills of being able to deal with daily stress and things like that. But again, I'd love to hear what you guys think. What would actually cause any solution to actually make some of these Army on Army crimes stop? Or is this something that is just inevitable that we're seeing? Overall, I would like to say it's not, but we'll see what happens in the future and how the Army deals with this, and I hope to see some recourse for the family. Again, condolences to them. But as always, if you guys do have questions about this or anything else, you can hit me up on Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, or down in the comments below. I love you guys. I'll see you next time.